Hey, it's Anton Krieger. This episode of All Things Green is brought to you by NextGen Clean Energy Solutions, your sustainability easy button from concept to completion. Welcome to All Things Green. I'm Anton Krieger, your host, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Chief Silverio Caggiano, who served 39 years as a firefighter chief and is now a board member at the Buckeye Environmental Network. Chief, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. I'm curious, as a fire chief, what got you into the realm of sustainability? You started off as a firefighter, I presume. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I kind of stumbled into it when I was working on the med units in our fire department. We had a call for a chlorine spill at the city's wastewater treatment plant, and we responded there to pick these three guys up that had been exposed to chlorine. This was like 1982. This predates all of your, RCRA and your, IPCRA laws and your chemical right to know stuff. This was like, the wild, wild west days. Okay. So when we rolled up, there's these three guys that were coughing, obviously, had issues. And there's this like greenish yellow cloud rolling around. I'm like, oh, that's neat. What the heck is that? And oh, that's chlorine. It's okay. It's over there. It's not here. But in those days, you didn't know what the product's problems were, and we weren't aware that these guys had got it in themselves, and they were off vaporing. So one of the guys that was fairly okay got up in front of the ambulance. I took two in the back. I laid one down who was having obvious respiratory problems. I turned my vent fan on. Unfortunately, my partner up front who was driving just had the air conditioning recirculated. We got these guys to the hospital. He started having some problems and subsequently ended up, my partner that had the one guy up front, he ended up in the hospital with some severe blood problems due to the off-vaporing of the guy in there and the air conditioning in the front just recirculating. I was spared because I had a vent that was a little bit in front of me and it was all being off-vapored. I just ended up with some sore throat issues. Yeah. But that was my first experience and I was like, wow, this isn't cool. Yeah. Then along came Bhopal. Of course, the industry said that you don't got to worry about it. Bhopal's not going to happen here in the United States. And then it did in Institute, West Virginia. They had the same type of leak, and that was the genesis of your rules and regulations involving hazardous materials. You had your SARA Title I, Title II, Title III, which was the genesis for the hazmat teams. And that's when chemical information, Tier 2 reporting, all that stuff started to come out. Over a period of time, I had gravitated out of the ambulance, moved on to the fire side of it, and I was working my way up the ranks. And as soon as I became a fireman, the local our hazmat team, said, "Yeah, you're a medic, you understand this stuff. You're a fireman, you want to join the team." And I knew the chief, and I said, "Yeah, I'll join the team." And I started my 30-some year, arrangement with the hazmat department. Yeah. And I felt it was advantageous to me because I didn't want to be that guy again, rolling into something. It's like, oh, wow, it's a cool orange yellowish crowd. What's all that about? And then end up like my partner. Right. So I felt it was advantageous to me.
So very, very early in your career, you almost witnessed your partner die because of this chlorine leak. Yeah. And that really kind of sets in motion all of your thoughts going forward, going into a career as a fire chief, as a hazmat specialist, making sure that there's oversight, making sure that there's regulation, making sure that people don't die from these hazardous chemicals. Is that more or less correct?
Correct. And it actually paid off because 30-some years later, we ended up having a similar chlorine leak at a similar place, but I was better trained. I was the incident commander. I knew what to do. Yeah. And we solved the problem without anybody having to go to a hospital. So, it all paid off. It paid off over my career because learning stuff helped me in promotional exams. Being a paramedic and being a hazmat tech, that's like, 1/3 of your test. Yeah. And, you knew you're going to ace that. So it made it easier for me to promote. Yeah. I learned, incident command and all that other stuff, which helped me as a chief too. And I took advantage of all the opportunities that were made available to me through Hazmat, going to state and federal schools,
Wow.
learning various assorted things like, how to do rad testing, how to, do sampling. And then after 9/11, I got involved with the State Hazmat Technical Advisory Board. And basically what we did is we quantified and qualified hazmat teams, built them, equipped them, dispersed, Homeland Security grant funding to these to help build assets within the state of Ohio. So pretty much everything going on hazmat now is due to everyone that worked hard on that board, including myself. And I was also Region 5's coordinator.
Yeah.
So I interacted with the FBI, the various assorted joint hazardous assessment teams to involve, the NSA, the CIA. A lot of that information was coming around.
Yeah. So all these agencies that you got to work with over the course of 30 some years.
Yeah.
When I first met you, I didn't actually know that firefighters really dealt with hazmat situations with radioactivity. For the viewers, I'm kind of curious what kind of hazardous materials that maybe you've had to deal with within dirty industries that can leak out into our environment and hurt the environment.
Well, aside from the chlorine incident that I told you, your communities have all kind of facilities that exist, and they do Tier 2 reporting forms, which they give what their chemical inventories are. But even in the firefighting itself, your modern fires today are hazmat spills because of the plastics, because of the styrenes, because of all the composite and blended materials. They become hazardous material spills.
Wow.
And the firefighters themselves are being exposed to cyanides and carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, all kind of other stuff.
Yeah.
I've actually had to go with hazmat guys and train emergency room physicians how to recognize when people have been exposed to carbon monoxide and cyanide poisoning, because it exhibits like a heart attack. But once you put oxygen on them, you quickly disperse the CO out of their system, but you still have the cyanide working on them.
Yeah.
And these people end up dying if the ER docs are not heads up on it.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
So for instance, when you're saying a fire today is like a hazmat spill, it's maybe not like the 1940s or the 1930s. It was wood and brick that went up in flames, but now we have all of this stuff in our homes that has plastic, has all these synthetic materials, and really those chemicals that are being caught on fire are...
Yeah, they take their toll. They also take their toll on the people that live in the houses too.
Yeah.
The stuff burns and it gives off vapors, and unless you're aware of what these vapors are, you don't know what you're getting involved in. But yeah, the houses in the 40s and the 50s, you had wool couches that had horsehair stuffing and springs, and even in schools, we started to notice sick school syndrome as soon as we started putting plastic desks and carpeting in school. What is this doing in schools? And we've had a few of those, but I've been on quite a few very bad spills. Ethylene oxide spills, the chlorine spills. We had a couple of anthrax scares post 9/11. Those are rather interesting. One resulting in a prosecution. Guy didn't like where he worked, and he thought it'd be funny to mail a package full of talcum powder and say it was anthrax.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very funny.
No, it's not. So
do they have to send him somewhere else to get a better sense of humor too, or? Yeah,
he's now learning a different kind of humor in jail.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's not funny.
Yeah.
And even 9/11 itself actually changed the landscape of stuff. I remember when I was going to college, anytime finals would come around, you always have a bomb scare because somebody just didn't study hard enough for their.
Yeah, but
But nowadays, you do a bomb scare, you're looking to doing your studying in a state penitentiary somewhere.
But it shows that the world is changed.
It's evolved. Yes.
Even tying in 9/11 and stuff like that from the 40s all the way till now. I mean, there's so much more synthetic materials. There's so much more hazardous waste that we know about. One hazardous waste in particular that we work on at Buckeye Environmental Network is oil and gas waste. And I've talked a little bit about this on the show before in a separate episode, but when you frack or when you even just get regular oil and gas waste from conventional oil wells that like the grandpappies put on their farms, 80 years ago or whatever, for every barrel of crude oil or natural gas that we receive, we're also getting 7 to 10 barrels of this oil and gas waste that then gets spread on roadways in the name of a de-icer, dust suppressant, or goes into an injection well. And tell me from a firefighter standpoint how you're trying to tackle the oil and gas waste problem.
Well, this is how I jumped down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
The oil and gas rabbit hole. My hazmat chief got Ohio's model legislation for fracking in the state of Ohio, and it looked like it was going to be big, and he read it and he pushed it across the desk to me and he goes, read this and tell me what you think's wrong. So I'm reading through this, and after I get through it, I said, there is no Tier 2 reporting. There's no way for us to know what these places have. And I said, that's not good for us. I said, there's no way we can prepare. In the fire department, it's pre-planning, preparing. You have a variety of incidents, and the ones you prepare for the most are the ones we call low frequency, high impact. And these gas wells are low frequency, high impact, unfortunately becoming a little bit more frequent because of some of their lackadaisical rules. But it scared us. And he said, we better start looking into this. And that's where I jumped down the rabbit hole. That's where I met people like Teresa Mills and got involved with Buckeye Environmental.
Yeah.
And I never, when I just got into it trying to protect firefighters and, first responders to get the information they needed.
Yeah.
Because back then, you couldn't even be treated if you had been exposed to this stuff. The doctor treating you wasn't going to get the information.
Right.
That changed a little bit, but it's still that way now.
Yeah.
The industry tries to tell you that, oh no, we report, but they put out an overview of the report 60 days after the wellhead's completed. That doesn't help me at all when I'm on the scene and there's stuff blowing into the air and there's stuff spilling into the water and on the land and that, and it surprises me that they just don't understand that, because if we worked in conjunction with these facilities to try to solve the problem, if we knew what was going on, we could mitigate quite a bit of that and be prepared. I don't think that's what they want, because it would cost them money.
Yeah.
And the brine spreading is just another way of privatizing profits and publicizing losses. The contaminated brine is a loss.
Yeah.
It would cost them a lot of money to get rid of it. So let's just say it's salt that we can spread and use to get rid of ice on the roads.
Yeah.
Pay no attention to the radium 226 and 228 that is in this product.
Yeah.
It's not there, not mentioned, not thought about, but it's there.
And as a firefighter, if one of these brine tanks roll over that's carrying the oil and gas waste, we saw a spill last fall in Trumbull County. It's the firefighters that have to respond on the scene. And if they're not even informed what's really going on, what is in this waste, what are the risks, I could see how that would be a big problem for a fire chief.
And the driver doesn't even know what he has on there. Most of these drivers are ill-trained as far as what they're containing. They say it's brine waste, but they don't tell them it's radium 226, radium 228, all these other heavy metals that are in this stuff. They don't tell them any of that. Yeah. And it's when the fire department rolls up, and the police and the tow truck drivers and the EMS, they're wading through this stuff. Yeah. As well as the drivers. They're, how many times have you looked and you've seen these drivers are wearing coveralls and leather gloves and leather boots, and they're bringing this stuff home and they're laundering it. I'm taking this guy that has rolled his tractor trailer or truck in the brine. He's been in it. Now I'm putting him on a cart, taking him to the hospital. All the firemen are playing in it, and they don't really understand that. They're going to go back to their fire station and contaminate the fire station and go home. Yeah. And I'm going to bring a patient that has been exposed to this radium in the brine to a hospital loaded with other sick people. Yeah. Not knowing what I'm into. So it's kind of like ludicrous that we're allowing this to go on. We're
talking about a radioactive material that has a half-life of around 1,600 years, and the dissemination, the migration of this is insane. We think about a brine truck rolling over on the side of the road, first responders trudging through this, cleaning it up, their leather boots, they take it home to their family, they wash their clothes, their babies are getting their clothes washed in the same washing machine that the radium was washed in.
Yep.
It's crazy to think about it.
But this is what's going on. It's not just going on in Ohio. It's going on in Pennsylvania. It's going on in Montana. It's going on in a lot of places. And the industry has bought themselves enough political clout so that they don't have to report what's in there. They don't have to worry about water. The Halliburton rule it was all about, so what, I contaminated your water. Prove that I did it. Prove that we didn't have the radium-226 in it and 228 before. Prove it. And it's just ludicrous. The three things that everyone in the United States, a country like the United States, should be entitled to is clean air, clean water, and a safe place to live.
Yeah.
But the very people that we elect into office to make sure that that exists are in bed with the people that are just making money and don't care because it's not their neighborhood. You don't see these injection wells going into the neighborhoods where these rich people live. You don't see that. It's
disproportionately affecting those poor income people in Appalachia. It's tucked away in the countryside where a lot of people like me who live in the city aren't ever going to see these horrible giant injection wells.
They look for poor communities. They look for minority communities and what I call the triple Yahtzee, poor minority communities.
Yeah.
And that's where they love to locate this stuff because the community's poor. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the ability to fight them.
Right.
And most of the minorities are so used to being screwed over that it's sort of like, so what? This is the next thing that they're doing. Just like Youngstown. Youngstown is an environmental, justice area.
Yeah.
And they're looking to put pyrolysis plants there when you have instances of high cancer within minority communities there from the old steel mill days. And we're still cleaning up the messes from the steel mills. There's still heavy metals in the river. There's still, the damage that was done by that industry. And the excuse for that is we didn't know better back in those days, but not really so.
Yeah.
They knew the chemicals. They just didn't know the long-term damage. Now we do. But we're still revisiting those industries. They're still coming in, and they tell, we're going to bring jobs. Yeah. Fantastic, but is it jobs with justice? Is it jobs that you're going to bring contamination home to your kids?
Yeah.
And they're going to have to deal with it. It's crazy.
Yeah, same Rust Belt cities, same Appalachian region, and now the industry is trying to spin new industries. And I want to actually pick your brain a little bit about pyrolysis. Greenwashing is a term that we use on the show. They're presenting these solutions in air quotes, as a green way to dispose of plastics, recycle plastics. Tell me what pyrolysis actually is, and your involvement in the SOBI plant that's proposed in Youngstown.
Well, pyrolysis basically is you're taking a waste product, plastics, tires, whatever, and you are putting it in a container and you're superheating the exterior of it, the exterior of the container, so you have a radiant heat that starts breaking down these plastics into various assorted other components. In Youngstown, we had a gentleman am I allowed to say names?
Yeah.
Okay.
David Farrow.
David Farrow. I had a gentleman named David Farrow that came in and was trying to sell the city a bill of goods about utilizing a pyrolysis plant that was going to be the end-all, be-all jobs. Of course, once again, we talk about jobs.
Yeah.
It was going to bring an industry there, and Youngstown was the greatest place to put it. What he was going to do, he called it, I forget what the term was. It was a greenwashing term, but it wasn't pyrolysis. He called it something else.
Advanced recycling, was it?
No, it was another term that he threw in there. But basically, when you looked at the science of it, it was pyrolysis.
Yeah.
And the EPA is termed, still so far, is termed that it's incineration is basically what it is.
So even the US EPA recognizes that pyrolysis is an incineration plant.
For now. Yeah,
For
but
now.
Lord only knows what's going to come out with you have that Chevron case, the Chevron law or ruling case that's now going to be heard in the Supreme Court. And if they rule in favor of the company that or the fishermen, it has, though it may sound like it only affects fishermen, it's going to be a trickle down even into the US EPA. And then you won't be able to regulate these things. And
the broader policy effects.
Yeah, the broader policy effects.
Yeah.
And then you're going to end up, with states running what they want to do, and most of your EPAs that are state-run, some of them are, like in Ohio, aren't very effective. They have good people working for them, but their policies are made, by politicians and not by people that understand environmental issues. But getting back to the SOBI thing, So far, the US EPA is calling it incineration. So he had these plans that he was talking about, and I affectionately call them the Cheshire Cat plans because you're only seeing bits and pieces. Well, this is the unit's going to do this, and when I throw questions out at him like, well, what are you doing with the sulfides? Well, we got a process for that. Well, where is it? Well, we're working on that. And that's what you were getting. You weren't seeing, like the Cheshire Cat, you've seen maybe the face and the tail and the body, and you never saw the whole plan.
Yeah.
So to me, it started to sound really strange. That, and he was claiming that he had full support of the US EPA. Fortunately, Teresa Mills looked into that. He had no support of the Ohio EPA or the US EPA. He was lying about that, so he lied.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. You don't know who he's got on the inside, but he didn't have the open support, so he lied.
That's right.
He's telling me he doesn't have he's a plan, but he's not showing it to me. And like I told him, I said, look, there was 2 boys from Ohio that had a plan about flying machines. And it was, it was cutting edge. Everyone didn't believe they could do it, but they showed everybody their plans.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to do that. Thermalization is the term that he used.
Thermalization. So he painted this solution of taking 88 tons of tires and incinerating those every day.
At first, it wasn't tires. He got backed into tires.
So he was talking out of 2 sides of his mouth. He was saying tires at one
he was
point.
going to do plastics. He was going to do tires. He was going to do a whole host of stuff, and he was going to do Bitcoin mining, and he was going to market tire black. I mean, it was like any idea that he could think of, he threw on the wall and see if it could stick. And it was sort of like, okay, let's just eliminate the bullshit here. Let's start talking facts.
Yeah.
And when I would start questioning him, the answers weren't there.
Yeah.
So when you look up his thermalization thing, again, it's another greenwashing term. And when you look up thermalization, the definition fits pyrolysis, or the other processes that they use.
Yeah.
Or gasification, pyrolysis, the whole 9 yards. So yeah, here we go, greenwashing, and it was just didn't sound right.
Right. And this is something that I see as an environmental justice organizer at Buckeye Environmental Network. A lot of these companies are piecemealing their permits. They're going after one little thing at a time with the US EPA to try and sneak things by or not show the whole plan, just like you're saying.
And with him, he just didn't understand his chemistry.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's well versed in chemistry. I don't know. I don't know, but I know when he says that, well, you have a process that if air gets into it, you're going to have in the fire service what we call a backdraft. It's going to explode. And if you read what's happened in these plants like in India and other places, that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah.
Because unless you watch them very judiciously, unless you constantly maintain the process and the equipment, eventually air is going to get into it. And when you start splitting some of these chemicals, you're going to produce oxygen, you're going to produce carbon, you're going to produce a lot of other chemicals.
Yeah.
And he never had a way of explaining how he was going to deal with that. Well, we're going to burp off the oxygen. Oh, we got another process. Can I see the process? Well, no. Again, the Cheshire Cat plan, and it just all sounded very, as we'd call it in the old age, hinky.
Yeah.
And I didn't trust him.
Yeah.
And, I would ask him chemical questions. And right after the incident that happened in East Palestine that involved vinyl chlorides, well, that was a perfect opportunity to jump on him because, everyone thinks tires, rubber, right? No, tires are synthetic.
Yeah.
You don't get 70,000-mile warranties, out of a rubber tire.
Right.
You get them out of synthetics, and these synthetics do have chlorides, and these synthetics have benzenes in them. That's all part of the chemical synthetics that go into it. And when I told him, a bad day at Sobeys, if he doesn't watch what he's doing, it's going to be like, East Palestine's explosion.
Yeah.
And his comment to the news about that was, well, I'm comparing apples and oranges. And when I was told that, I says, well, he better go back to chemistry school because that's exactly what his day is going to look like.
Yeah.
Because you have the vinyl chlorides in there, you have the benzenes, you have the chemicals there to cause the similar type problems. And even worse was location. Like they say in the realty world, location, location, location.
Yeah.
This man wants to put this plant upwind from the entire city of Youngstown, across the street from university housings, within sight of Youngstown State University's stadium,
Yeah, it makes no sense.
across the street from a jail. So these poor people in the jail will be literally captive audiences of his,
Right.
of his disaster, and across the street from the main fire station in the city of Youngstown. So he's taking out a jail, a university, and the first due engine companies and responders to his disaster right there.
Yeah,
So, why would you do this?
yeah,
And fortunately, with Buckeye Environmental, we got a group together and we started to fight this. I lent my support where I could there. And we got the city council to put a moratorium on it for 1 year while they investigate it further. I would have preferred, because it's a city, you can do codified ordinances. I'd have preferred a codified ordinance that says, no, we don't do this at all inside the city of Youngstown, because they have a lot to lose.
but we'll work on it, right?
Yeah, we're going to work on it. We've succeeded somewhat in Toledo. That was the other place they want to put it. I just read the other day where Toledo didn't give them the permit to run their business. So,
And these local officials, they have the agency and they have the ability to make laws to make sure that pyrolysis doesn't happen in their communities. So it's a matter of pressuring our politicians as the grassroots organizations, building coalition, and making sure that these dirty industries aren't poisoning our university students, people in the jail, low-income communities, people of color. And that's what environmental justice is all about.
exactly. But unfortunately, there are townships that cannot make codified ordinances. And that is where I feel that the next battleground is going to be, because they're going to go to these townships. That's what the oil and gas industry is doing. They're
Well-
putting their injection wells. They don't put them in cities. They put them in townships where they can't fight. They don't have any codified ordinance. They have no ability to codify an ordinance to get rid of them. So they pretty much have to, fall back on what the state's going to do, and the state's in bed with these people.
Yeah. Well, more to come on that, Chief. We have to have you back sometime on the show to talk more about the policies, get some updates on the East Palestine stuff. I know we didn't get to it, but next time for sure. Chief, are there any organizations you'd like to plug before we wrap up the show?
Naturally, Buckeye Environmental Network. If you're a grassroots organization looking for an umbrella entity to help you along with funding, give you guidance, just like we did with the Citizens Against SOBI in Youngstown, Buckeye Environmental is a good asset to look into. We have incredible people working for us. We've got a board that is very progressive, and it looks like we're starting to see reactions. And the Ohio legislator called Buckeye Environmental a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking for some kind of guidance and a group to get underneath to help you along, Buckeye Environmental Network.
Chief, thank you for talking all things green with me. I'm going to let our viewers know how they can stay in touch with us. If you'd like to stay connected to us, be sure to follow us at TikTok at ATG Show. And if you'd like to rewatch full episodes, check out our YouTube channel, All Things Green Show. You can find all of our sources from today's episode in our show notes. Thank you so much for being a part of the global sustainability movement.